Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Hey Jive Picks. I'm your host, founder, editor, and producer Hayden Iverson, and today we're going to be recapping the UFC London card. Before we get into that, though, there was another event over the past weekend, Bellator 283. Not too many eyes were on that one, but I do have to brag a little bit here. If you don't know what Topology is, it's a place where you can enter your picks for majority of the MMA competitions around the world. And in the Bellator one, there was 1,215 people that put their picks in, and I came in first place. Did I do any research to back that up? No. Completely just went off of what I knew, didn't do any research, didn't look into it, but I managed to come in first out of 1,215 people. I got every fight on the card correct, except for one that was ruled a no contest. So that was a little bit surprising, but I'll take it. I'll take that win. As for UFC Fight Night, London Blades versus Aspinall, I went 9 for 14, so that's not terrible, but on a card where there was a lot of big favorites, you should expect to get a little bit more of those correct. And as for my bets, they did not go well either. So we will get right into it, starting with the main event that was not so main. Lasted 15 seconds. As you guys know, if you watched the previous video, if you followed me on TikTok at Hey Jive Picks, I had a lot of investment in Tom Aspinall. I was very confident in him. Being at home, it sucks that he had that injury to him. I hope he has a speedy recovery because it's somebody that I do enjoy to watch. But overall, it was 15 seconds into the fight. You can't really dissect it too much. Freak injury, but that's part of the game. We saw it last week. Brian Ortega's shoulder being popped out. Saw it a couple months ago. Alexander Rakic. This stuff, it happens. You're betting on MMA. So that was a bad hit for me because I had so much invested in him. He was the last leg on a couple of my parlays that obviously did not hit. There was part of me that was thinking about hedging out because they were pretty sizable parlays, but then I did have a few straight plays on them as well. So, what are you going to do? That's part of the sport, and just goes to show you that anything can happen and you never really know. Moving down the card, the co-main event, Jack Hermansson versus Chris Curtis. This one's a bit surprising. I had Chris Curtis in this one. Chris Curtis was pretty frustrated that Jack Hermansson was kind of piecing him up from the outside, using his length to keep Chris Curtis at range. Showed really good movement going around the octagon. Uses kicks very well. Kind of in and out. Didn't want to stay in the pocket with Chris Curtis, which is understandable. Chris Curtis has great boxing. But overall, Jack Hermansson pretty much dominated the entire fight because he fought the way he wanted to. He said he didn't want to go for takedowns because he knows Chris Curtis has great takedown defense. So he utilizes his length, stays on the outside, pieces him up from the outside, in and out. Overall, pretty good performance against Jack Hermansson. Not something that I saw coming, not something that many people saw coming for him to fight in that manner. It's not really what he's used to, I guess. But got to give him props for that. Definitely won it. Was a pretty boring fight, though, and kind of sucked because the fight before that with Paddy Pimlet, you got the whole crowd going crazy for Paddy, and this fight really, I feel like, took the energy out of the whole place. So, I mean, that sucks. But Moving on, Paddy Pimlet versus Jordan Levitt. I think it's been proven now that Paddy Pimlet is a slow starter. He was being controlled most of the first round. Not Jordan Levitt not doing much damage for the whole first round, but controlling him on the cage. Really just wanting to clinch up with him and not really throw any strikes, not throw any knees or elbows or anything inside the clinch, but more so just hold him up against the cage and not allow him to get moving. And then in the second round, there are a few more scrambles. You can tell Jordan Levitt is a little bit, not gassed, but not as able to control Paddy as he was in the first round. First round was still a toss-up. It could have gone either way because Paddy was landing the more significant strikes, doing more damage. Jordan Levitt did have control. He had 4 minutes and 50 seconds of control time throughout the fight. So at this point, you're kind of wondering what maybe Jordan Levitt can hang with this guy, which maybe he still can. But Paddy, gets the body lock or the body triangle with the arm isolated. So Jordan Levitt's trying to defend the back with one arm. He's got his arm tucked away, and it was pretty much from there you knew that Jordan Levitt was in some deep waters, and he's probably not going to get out. Paddy gets the sub. I had the Paddy by KO, which he wasn't really able to land anything on the feet because Jordan Levitt was wanting to clinch with him the entire time. So a tough one there as far as my bet goes. But Paddy by sub was a little less of a payout than the KO. So for good reason, because he got it. But can't be too mad at it. Paddy Pimlet, he's looking like he can do some damage in this division. Like I was saying before, I feel like this is not his best opponent. Jordan Levitt, like I said, doesn't have much on the feet, but showed that he can hang in there. He's not just some scrub. He can hang in there with, Paddy could fight a ranked fighter in his next fight if he wants to go that route. But he said he's wants to fight at the end of the year, and considering all of the stuff that he had to go through, if you don't know, I would go check that out with his two family friends or friends that he's known his whole life passing away on Friday morning before weigh-in. So for him to overcome that and have that performance, props to him for that. Next fight, Nikita Krylov versus Alexander Gustafsson. This one was pretty much over right when it started as well. I didn't want to touch this from a betting perspective because of the unknowns of Alexander Gustafsson. So I took Nikita Krylov just for the channel sake. So I took him. Nikita Krylov looked really good. I don't know if that's just because Alexander Gustafsson is not good anymore, but he looked very good. Was landing heavy strikes from the get-go, and dropped Gustafsson a couple times, and then ultimately got the little uppercut up from the clinch that dropped him and took him out. So moving forward, does Gustafsson stay around? I don't know. That's a little bit of a tough one to take, being gone through, for camp. He's been off for 2+ years, and then go through a camp and then get starched in the first round, first minute, really. We'll see if he's back. Nikita Krylov looked good, but as I said, level of competition, don't know if that is there. Not to shade Gustafsson, but at this point in his career, who knows where he's at. The next fight, Molly McCann, lightning strikes twice, as she says. Spinning back elbow against Hannah Goldie. It really looked like Molly McCann was on another level. Hannah Goldie's not the greatest opponent, but Molly McCann looked very good in this. Her striking looked very crisp, very crisp. For the first time in her UFC career, I guess this is the first time she's fighting someone that's her size. So that had to feel pretty good. She looked sharp. She looked ready to go. She's always ready to go. And this fight definitely helped get the crowd into it as well. From the last card in London, every fight was just super good. But this one was a bit of a doozy, I would say, for the expectations that people had of it. Out of all the fights, I think there was, 10 decisions out of 14 fights. So, 10 or 11, see, 1 finish, 2 finish, 3 finish, 4 finishes, and then the main event. So, not many finishes compared to the last card. There was 9. So this one really, I think, got the crowd going. It was good because, you kind of want more energy, especially if you're betting on, for me, I was betting on Tom Aspinall, get the crowd into it, the home favorite. So this one was good to get the crowd going, but was ultimately starched by the co-main event. So good for Molly. I think Molly should get a ranked opponent. I think the UFC obviously wants to build her and keep her in these main card spots because she's a big fan favorite, and all the interactions with Dave Portnoy, everyone knows Dave Portnoy, everybody knows Barstool, so someone that they'll look to market for sure. First fight on the main card, Paul Craig versus Volkan Oezdemir. This one was very. The build up to it was a lot more exciting than the fight. Paul Craig is one of the most intimidating people, I would say, just by his actions before the fight, and then the way he fights is not intimidating at all. If you watch the build up to the fight, see Paul Craig at the official weigh-in show, face painted. He always has the face paint. They square off. You know how some people have like a RBF, resting bitch face? I feel like Volkan Oezdemir has like a resting sad face. It looks like someone just killed his dog. Like, that's just his face. I don't know if that is his face or if that's the way he's just feeling. But it looks like he's sad, like, almost all the time. You see it at the official weigh-in when Paul Craig gets in his face. He's got this, like, sad-looking face. I don't know if it's just his face. It might just be his regular face, but he looks like he's sad, like, all the time. And then watching the walkouts, still sad. And then Paul Craig comes out just game face, laser focused. Bruce Buffer's like screaming in his face the intros, and he's just dead eyes on Volkan Oezdemir. Volkan's got the sad face. So in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my God, this guy's gonna do it. Like, this is Paul Craig. He's game. He's ready to go. And the whole fight, he's just trying to get him in the guard, and Volkan Oezdemir is not dumb enough to do that. Like, it's obvious that he doesn't want to be there on the guard, because why would you? But at the same time, I'm also thinking, how are they going to score this fight? Because Paul Craig wants you to be in the guard, and Volkan Oezdemir doesn't want you to be in the guard. So if he gets you to be in the guard, does that mean he's winning or not? Because officially, if he's officially he was 0 for 15 for takedowns, because all he does is kind of clinch you up and then drag you down into his guard because that's where he wants to be. But as far as it's scored, it's not a takedown for him because he's the one going on the ground. So as far as the scoring goes, it's gonna look like he's getting dominated, really, or like he's failing. But at the same time, there's part of it that there's like a little bit of success there because he's getting him to the ground where Volkan Oezdemir doesn't want to be. But then Volkan does get up. I mean, in the first round, Craig had that he was working on the legs for a little bit there. But as the fight went on, it looked like Oezdemir's legs and whole body was just getting like too slippery, and Paul Craig couldn't hold on. Craig landed some good shots, but overall, it just looked like he was like a fish out of water for some reason. Like, I mean, that's his style, really. Like, if I feel like Paul Craig he's finish or bust. So like, how is he gonna win a decision trying to pull guys into his guard? That doesn't, you're not really doing any damage that way. You're taking it to a place where your opponent doesn't want to be, but are you keeping them there? Because it's not that hard to get out of someone's guard. You can just stand up. Easier said than done, but it's not as hard to get out of that than if someone's on top of you. So Oezdemir gets the decision 27-30 on all the scorecards, which is, I think, the rightful way to go about it. But still, just a weird fight. A weird fight to score because there's a lot of ways you can look at it. But I'm not mad about it at all. I had the Paul Craig by sub and Paul Craig by money line that did not hit as he lost. The featured prelim, Mason Jones versus Ludovic Klein. This one was somewhat surprising. Yes and no, because Mason Jones is solid, but is he good at any one thing? Not necessarily. And Ludovic Klein, props to Ludovic Klein. Ludovic Klein looked amazing for coming up from 145. Yes, he's fought at 150 and 155 before, but this guy looked big. He looked like massive. Like, he should definitely just stay at 155. I think that would help him a lot. I don't know if he'll do that in the future, if he's going to stay there. But nonetheless, he looked big and he looked sharp. His kicks, his punches just looked like he was like a step ahead of Mason Jones. And then Mason Jones also really was getting controlled on the ground as well. Overall, just kind of got outclassed against Ludovic Klein. And as such a big favorite, that's pretty surprising. He's down the first two rounds, likely the first two rounds. First round, maybe could have gone either way, but I think should have been scored for Ludovic Klein. Second round, quite clearly goes to Ludovic Klein. Dropped Mason Jones in the middle with a nice combo. And then the third round, Mason Jones kind of knows he has to go for a finish. They're all sweaty, obviously. It's the third round. And then he tries to pull guard or pull some kind of armbar from the standing position, and ultimately he's on his back for the rest of the fight. Very impressive top control by Ludovic Klein. For a mostly kickboxer striker, his top control was very, very good. I don't know if that's just because Mason Jones was maybe laggy because of the trip over or got gassed out. I'm not sure, but not a good look for Mason Jones. Hurt hurt one of our parlays there, but I'll get over it. Next fight, Mark Jacasey, Damir Hatsevich. As I said in the prediction video, if Mark Jacasey wants to just go for the wrestling and take the wrestling all day, it's going to be a extremely boring fight, but he's going to get the win very easily, and that is exactly what he did. Did not really look to strike at all on the feet. He's an insane athlete, for one. So, if he wants to continue this dominant wrestling style, he absolutely can. He's not going to be a fan favorite or anything. Nicknamed the Bone Crusher, not really crushing any bones, but very impressive wrestling performance by him. 13 minutes and 35 seconds of control time out of a 15-minute fight. Quite clearly was in control of the fight. Only landed 13 significant strikes, though. So, obviously, if you have 13 minutes and 35 seconds of control time and you're only landing 13 significant strikes, are you really looking to finish the fight, or are you just looking to hold on? As a fan, you don't really strive to watch these kind of fights, but nonetheless, very dominant win for Mark Jacasey. And as a bettor on him, I would back him if he wants to continue to do that, because I don't see many people that are in his realm of the lightweight division right now that can put up with that. I think if he continues to do that, he's going to have a lot of success, but he's probably going to lose some fans. So, moving on, Nathaniel Wood versus Charles Rosa. Nathaniel Wood looks sharp, for sure. Definitely looks a lot better at featherweight than bantamweight. He looked filled out. Very, very sharp, very fast. I knew he'd have the speed advantage, which was obviously proven. Landed 97 significant strikes to Charles Rosa's 51. Credit to Charles Rosa, though, because, Boston's strong, but he could have taken many routes out of this. But he stayed in there and kept fighting. The Wood landed a lot of nasty leg kicks that made Charles Rosa switch his stance quite a few times. And every time it seemed that he switched back to it, he would just get clocked in the calf with that. But as I said, it's Charles Rosa hung in there and was trying to finish the fight. He was throwing some real bombs, not connecting. I puckered a little bit when this thing was the end of the first or second round, when they're on the ground and Charles Rosa had something that looked like it was sunken in, but then, there's about 5 seconds left. So Nathaniel Wood was able to hold on there. Nathaniel Wood looked like he had some good takedown defense as well. Charles Rosa wasn't super aggressive with it, but when he did shoot, Nathaniel Wood knew not to fuck around there. So good showing for Nathaniel Wood. I'm interested to see how he looks. Hopefully they give him a little bit step up in competition. Charles Rosa, I wouldn't expect him to be around in the UFC too much longer. Maybe because he shows a lot of heart, and he shows Boston strong. He's gonna throw down. So maybe he'll stick around, but I don't see him getting too many wins in the future. McCann, Amirkhani, Jonathan Pierce. I had the dog shot on Amirkhani, and I said that most likely it's gonna come. A win's gonna come from Amirkhani in the first round, and he was close a couple times. He went for a couple guillotines, couple anacondas in the first round, and looked like there was some possibility to get something out of that, but ultimately didn't. And Jonathan Pierce took over. So a good showing from Jonathan Pierce, I would say, coming over into enemy territory, withstanding that first storm for Amirkhani, and then ultimately putting it on him in the second round for a good amount of time. 90 significant strikes, 4 minutes of 46 seconds of control time, 4 or 5 on the takedowns. Jonathan Pierce looks good. He's now 4-1 in the UFC. Should be getting probably some edge, fringe top 15 guys soon. So overall, I'll eat my losses on Amirkhani. I had him by sub, but it wasn't that much investment in that. So props to Jonathan Pierce for that one. Muhammad Makhachev and Charles Johnson. I am kicking myself for not taking the fight to go to the distance. I talked about that in the predictions video. I think it was like plus 120 or 125 or something like that. And I thought that looked really good because Charles Johnson he has never been finished, and Makhachev has some decision wins on his record. Although he's never lost amateur or pro, he has a few decision wins. So I thought there was a great possibility that this fight could go the distance, and ultimately did. Makhachev looked extremely good. Like, he looked really good, and at the same time, for how good Makhachev looked, Charles Johnson looked good as well, which is weird to say because as I think Makhachev was like minus 500 or something, 450. So heavy favorite. Charles Johnson, a heavy underdog, hung in there with him. Like, all the judges scored at 30-27. So were there possibilities for 10-8 rounds in there? Yes, but ultimately the judges didn't see it that way. And it wasn't like Charles Johnson was taking this insane damage, because he wasn't. Makhachev only landed 12 significant strikes, but had 11 minutes of 44 seconds of control time, 12 of 26 on takedowns. So he was pretty much just attached to him the entire time. Maybe you'd want to see some more ground and pound or, submission attempts, but it looked like Makhachev was going for submission attempts. He wasn't really trying to land a ton of ground and pound, because Charles Johnson would get taken down and then he'd get brought back up. A lot of this control time is just against the cage control time. A lot of standing. Makhachev used that leg lace lock, which was really interesting to look at. Maybe you'd see that more in these upcoming fights. You don't see that a ton, but he went to it like back to back to back. If he had you on the fence, he's gonna throw that leg around, lock it around his leg, so he has one leg secured, and then he's gonna be working off of that. So overall, I mean, a very impressive performance by Makhachev. Controlled the entire fight, but I would look for. I think Charles Johnson is top 15 material. Obviously, Makhachev is as well. Flyweight division kind of needs, not necessarily top 5 guys, but they need. It's not the deepest division. They kind of need someone to step in that 6 to 15 role. More contenders. And Makhachev is one, and I could see Charles Johnson to be one as well. But props to both of them. Kind of a boring fight, but Makhachev did throw some suplexes in there that made it exciting. But for the average fan, they would probably think that's pretty boring. For me, I thought it was impressive. Moving on, Jai Herbert versus Kyle Nelson. And my suspicions were true about Jai Herbert. It took him a good round and a half to get going, I would say. He came out popping. He has good movement, generally, on his toes, popping around, but just not really throwing anything. It looked like he was hesitant to throw, coming off of the big knockout from Ilia Topuria. It looked like it was somewhat in the back of his mind that, like, if I engage, I could get clipped here. So it took him. He definitely dropped the first round. Kyle Nelson looked he didn't even look small for coming up from featherweight, but he looked fast. And obviously, as you go lower in weight, you're probably going to find faster guys. So in the first round, he looked fast. He looked like he would have the speed advantage over Jai Herbert. But towards the second half of the second round, kind of slowed down, and Jai Herbert was able to put his hands, put his legs on him, put his feet on him, and ultimately in the third round, who would have thought Jai Herbert takes the top control and controls that round, and ultimately gets the 29-28 unanimous decision. So, Jai Herbert was minus 250 something. I didn't think he was worth that price tag at all. But gets the win nonetheless. Second to last fight on the card, Mandy Burm versus Victoria Leonardo. This fight went pretty much how I predicted it. Victoria Leonardo needs to crash the distance, having the reach disadvantage. If she stays at range, she's going to get pieced up. Mandy Burm landed a lot of good strikes from the outside, but Victoria Leonardo just kept coming forward, and she was able to get a lot of cage control time and also landed a lot of nice combinations when she was on the inside. I don't think Mandy Burm was able to kind of react to that in the best way. Towards the middle and the end of the fight, she started to use her elbows pretty well. But for the most part, Leonardo, when she was on the inside and able to reach her, she landed some nice strikes, and then, of course, kept her on the cage in control. Not really landing too many strikes, but still enough to get it done. The ref was trying to pull him off the cage a few times because of the inactivity, but a boring fight. I figured this is how it would go. It seems like if you can get an aggressive fighter in women's MMA against like a naturally striking opponent, like, you kind of want to look to back that, especially at dog money. Victoria Leonardo was a slight dog, but I didn't have any money on her, but I picked her. So not too bad of a value there. Last fight, on the card, Claudio Silva versus Nicholas Dalby. This one was interesting. Claudio Silva pretty much takes the entire first round in mount, and not just lays on him, but does enough to be able to maintain that position without the ref standing them up. But nonetheless, he takes the first round, and then comes out in the second round, gets him down again for about 2 minutes, I think, and then Dalby gets him off, and at this point, it's pretty much like Dalby needs to go now. He needs to turn this around because he's down pretty much a half a round, and he's got to pull something within this round to solidify it for him, and he does. And then the third round, or not even the third round, but towards the end of the second round, Claudio Silva looks like he is just completely gassed. And then in the third round, it's even more obvious that Silva is just barely standing up because he's so gassed. And Darby looks like he's in good shape, showed that he was in good shape, and puts it on him. Not too terribly, but obviously wins the third round. I would say obviously wins the second round. Claudio Silva didn't quit, but he was gassed. He was for sure gassed. And Nicholas Darby pretty much had half a fighter there, second and third round. So win for Nicholas Darby. If I look at the full card for me, the predictions I gave out on here, I went 9-5. Let's see. So on a card where 1, 2, 3 underdogs won. Yeah, on a card where 3 underdogs won. That's not terrible, I guess, but overall, I got swept on the board for my bets. I got completely swept. Most of my investment was on Tom Aspinall, so if it comes down to that and he wins, then I'm looking pretty solid, but he did not. So I get swept for the week, but there's a pretty solid card coming up this weekend. UFC 277, Juliana Pena versus Amanda Nunes, and then Brandon Moreno versus Kai Kara France. Very interested to see how those play out. A couple of rematches. Pena winning the first one and Moreno winning the first one. 2 title fights. Should be a very the card overall looks really good as well. For a pay-per-view, not super massive, but nonetheless, it'll be a very good card. So, gonna get in the lab for that. Do some research on that. I'll probably have the video for that out in the early comings of this week. Try to get that out for you compared to last week when it was put out the day before. So hopefully you guys were able to make some money, get some right picks over this last weekend for UFC London. Somehow I was able to win the Bellator card. I didn't even watch it, but somehow won the Bellator card on Topology. So there's my claim to fame. But thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for viewing. Please leave a like, drop a subscription, drop a comment. Tell me I'm trash for getting swept in UFC London, but then tell me I'm a GOAT for winning the Bellator 283 on Topology. Thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.